All right, everybody. How are we doing today? Welcome back to another episode of the Robbie Basel Show. You already know who I am. My name is Robbie Basel, and today is November 27th. I think this is the second to last episode of November, which is crazy for me to say. I mean, what? Yeah, this is the final episode of November already. This is going too fast. It feels like it's going so fast the rest of 2023, but there's a lot to talk about today. We have the Premier League, Champions League, the usual stuff there. Of course, the NFL, some MLB free agency moves so far, and gonna give a little baby recap of the Formula One season at the end of this video. So we're gonna dive into some of the Premier League matchups, do the usual stuff with the Champions League. We'll go quickly through some of the NFL games because the F1 thing is going to be the biggest portion of the video at the end. So let's stop doing this intro. Let's dive right into the action. So in the Premier League, we had a lot of matchups to talk about. But of course, the most important result of the weekend, by far, if I could find it, was Luton winning a match. They've done it again. Luton Town 2, Crystal Palace 1, Brown with a late winner after Olise equalized. All three goals in that match scored within 11 minutes. Shout out to Luton. They are now out of relegation places. They are in 17th, a crucial 4 points clear of 18th place Sheffield United. Of course, you had Everton, who had that points deduction, which is controversial, but you hate to see it. We had opened the day though at City Liverpool. Jeremy Doku is football's man of the match. Holland scored early on. And then Trent scored in the 80th minute. 1-1 draw. Makes sense. Two heavy hitters going at it with each other at the Etihad. I believe that's where this was. It was at the Etihad in Manchester. So big result, I think, for Liverpool because going on the road to the Etihad, it's a tough place to play in each time. If you're playing the reigning champions, you go out and get a draw. I think it's a pretty good result for Liverpool. City probably kicking themselves a little bit. If you look at the XG, City had almost over double the XG that Liverpool had. It was 1.36 to 0.56. They had more shots. Man City probably kicking themselves a little bit that they only got a draw out of this game. And they have dropped to a very crucial second place after Arsenal got the job done against Brentford. Albeit it was ugly. I got to watch the match. Arsenal had a goal disallowed for offsides. I think it was the right call by VAR. It was a forward pass. No defender was in front of the Arsenal players other than the goalkeeper, which turns into the second on this who's the last defender, not the second to last defender. And Arsenal, courtesy of Kai Havertz, finally scoring a goal from open play, get the 3 points and are now top of the league by 1 point over City and 2 points over Liverpool. But you want to talk about some other interesting results? Newcastle getting a very big 3 points against Chelsea after Newcastle went up early on. Chelsea equalized with Raheem Sterling, but then 3 goals in 23 minutes sealed the deal for Newcastle as they are trying to bounce back after their poor run of form earlier in the season. Newcastle now in 7th. Chelsea are now barely in the top half of the table once again. They're in 10th, tied with Brentford and a Wolves side who are playing right now. So we'll give you an update. Possibly, it's very possible that Chelsea, during the recording of this video, drops down to 11th, which not looking good for Chelsea. And if you look at their schedule upcoming, I mean, you just never know on a day by day basis what type of Chelsea you're going to get. They have Brighton, then United next. And after that, they have the EFL Cup. They have 2 relegation teams. Wolves are tough to score against. After, I would say, December 6th is where we're going to see if Chelsea can really capitalize against some of these not great opposition sides. Your Luton Towns, your Crystal Palaces, your Fulham, Wolves, you can put in that list, Sheffield United, Everton. Those types of teams. Can Chelsea go out and respond well to another defeat? And I mean, they play open with Brighton. I think that's going to be a loss. You play United. I think that's likely going to be a draw, especially a midweek matchup at United. So away to Everton, I feel like Goodison Park's going to be rocking. I feel like that could be drop points. Sheffield United, I think, is going to be 3. There's some guaranteed 3 points to be gained for Chelsea in the next couple of months. It's just, can they go out there, respond well, and get back into the hunt for European places? Brighton struggled with Nottingham, which made no sense, but Brighton went up 3-1, and then Gibbs White scored a penalty. It was chaos everywhere. And then the match finally ended, and Brighton got a big 3 points. They're trying to get back on track as well. And, of course, West Ham with a big 3 points going up against Burnley, and had to do it late. A penalty for Rodriguez opened the scoring for Burnley, but then own goal, and then a Tomas Souček winner. I believe that's who it was. Tomas Souček for West Ham gives the Hammers 3 points. I think that's what they're called. I don't even know. I think, that's the Hammers. To put West Ham United into 9th, and Burnley are down at the bottom. They're in a free fall right now. And we'll talk about their upcoming matchup on Friday. The matchups from yesterday, Aston Villa are now in 4th after a big win against Tottenham. We had Pau Torres and Ollie Watkins score. Ollie Watkins, of course, being one of the main players on this Aston Villa side. Giovanni Lo Celso opened the scoring, but then 2 Aston Villa goals. Tottenham and now has lost 3 in a row following the injuries to James Maddison. Let's just look at the injuries for Tottenham real quick, because of course we have time to do this. You have Maddison, Van de Ven, Richarlison, Sessegnon. Romero was suspended for this match. Perisic. So many now. This is where I think Tottenham get complacent, and this is where their free fall continues. I mean, they're starting to get complacent, which you can't do, because now you've gone from top of the table a couple weeks ago to now 5th. If you're Tottenham, this is not where you want to be. You want to be in those Champions League places, and guess what? They get City next, which I'm not counting on them winning. You're just trying to survive, I think, till the middle of next month when you play your Nottingham Forest, your Evertons, you have Bournemouth on New Year's Eve. So, listen, it's an interesting stretch coming for Tottenham. You still get to play your West Hams and your Newcastles, and Newcastle looked great recently. So you're really hoping that James Maddison can come back fast. Even a player like Richarlison, I think, can possibly provide that spark. Listen, if Kai Havertz can go out and score a game winner, then I think Richarlison has the same amount of ability to go out and score goals for Tottenham. It's just, can they use the right tactic to really get the full usage out of a player like a Richarlison? I never really thought Tottenham have done that so far since Richarlison's jumped on the team. But, I mean, Tottenham, they like having Son as the number 9. I don't know what they're going to do with him, honestly, because I feel like whatever he's playing on Tottenham should be the same role as the national team in South Korea. But I'm not talking about national teams today. I don't think that should be the big focus. We also had Everton 0, Man United 3. Garnacho scoring one of the best goals I've ever seen. Beautiful bicycle. It's like half volleyball. I don't even know what you call that. Wayne Rooney-esque is the better way to put it. But United getting all 3 points. United are undeservingly in 6th. I'm going to say undeserving because apologies, guys. You just feel like they should be giving you more, and they're not. I mean, you have they just cannot. Sorry about that. There's an ambulance going right by my dorm building, but you don't see them beat the bigger sides. They struggle with your Luton Towns, your Sheffield Uniteds. They beat Copenhagen. They lost to Copenhagen. But you barely beat Fulham. You lose 3-0 twice to City and Newcastle. So this United team, there's so many questions about. I'm going to break down their Champions League game in a little bit. That's actually what we're going to be talking about next. But, man, United, though, I think they could possibly be heating up at the right time, but they have an interesting schedule the next couple of weeks. You get Newcastle this weekend, then Chelsea, then Bournemouth. Of Of course, you have 2 Champions League matchups slated with the Galatasaray and the Bayern. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. By the way, Wolves and Fulham are at halftime in their match. But let's talk about the Champions League. We're going to go from the Prem to the Champions League. We'll go group by group, tell you what's going on. And we're going to start with the games for tomorrow, Tuesday, which are going to be the latter 4 groups. And if you want to talk about the early session, Shakhtar Donetsk, a team that I've hyped up a lot recently, have a chance to stay in the competition. They need to go out and get 3 points against. They're playing Royal Antwerp, who are in dead last. They've conceded the most goals in the Champions League. They've conceded a whopping 14 goals. I mean, there's not many teams that have even conceded double digits. If you're like the biggest powerhouse team to concede double digits has been Manchester United, but a team like Royal Antwerp, you really didn't expect very much going in. Shakhtar, this is their chance. If they can go out and get 3 points and hope Barcelona or Porto beat each other, then it could set up for a final day where Shakhtar Donetsk has a very fair shot at making it to the next stage. Because if they tie one of the teams above them on points, they're not going to go through due to their goal difference. So, Shakhtar Donetsk, let's look at what they've done so far. This Shakhtar team is a very interesting bunch with inconsistent goal scoring abound and a lot of problems on this team. However, let's look at who they've played in the how they've recently played in the Champions League. You go out, you beat Barcelona last match day. You lost to Barcelona. You beat your Royal Antwerp. And then before that, you lost to Porto. So if you're really thinking about going head-to-head with somebody right now, I mean, having a goal difference of 0 against Barcelona doesn't help. You really should be focused on the goal difference right now if you're Shakhtar Donetsk, because I don't even know what the tiebreakers are. So Shakhtar, they go head to head. I think they beat Antwerp tomorrow, but it's not going to be pretty. Give me like a 1-0, but Antwerp out XG's them. I think that's going to be your most likely result for this match. But if you also have Lazio, who I have not expected to do anything. They're in second. They play Celtic, a matchup where you could possibly see Lazio clinch a spot in the next round if Atletico Madrid beats Feyenoord, a Feyenoord team that I really hyped up in the beginning of the Champions League. Starting to really disappoint. It's in the Netherlands. I think Feyenoord wins. Really makes it for an interesting final day where you have Feyenoord going to Celtic, which playing in Scotland's never easy. I mean, I don't even know what to expect from this group. Listen, if Lazio loses this match or drops points, they're done. You do not want to go to Atletico Madrid in a match that Atletico Madrid needs to win to stay alive in this competition. You just don't want to do that. If they can go out and get their win and possibly clinch, that'd be very helpful because, like I said, you don't want to go to Madrid, Real, or Atletico Madrid having to go out and win a match to stay in a competition. You just don't want to do that. Granted, it won't be any easier going to Celtic because Celtic will have like a target on their back. If you underestimate Celtic, you will be punished for it if you're Feyenoord. But the first goal for Feyenoord should be go out, win your match tomorrow, stay alive, maybe even hope that Celtic causes a little bit of chaos and maybe even wins their match. Even if Celtic wins, Celtic's out already. So Celtic just trying to make some noise at the end of a Champions League run. Let's see how they play it out because there's a lot of possibilities for what Celtic can do. Barcelona, Porto, I'm expecting Barcelona to win. Next group we have Man City, who I believe have clinched already. They have Man City and Leipzig clinched already. They're going to be playing for pride at this point. City can actually win the group, which would be very helpful for them. But I'm going to be watching out for Red Star against Young Boys because I want to see who's going to the Europa League, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to play in Switzerland, a very usually cold Switzerland. A Swiss crowd that's usually very good. I have been able to watch some games of the Swiss league before. The Stadion Langdorf is usually very good. listen, Red Star blew this already. I mean, Red Star had a chance to go out and, have a much better shot at making the Europa League. But going to Switzerland with, I don't have much hopes for Red Star, especially with who they have to play last, which is City in Belgrade. So give me Young Boys and Red Star to draw. The Young Boys are going to go possibly through on goal difference because City's going to win like 6-0 against Red Star at the end. And then we have the group of death, which is for those who don't remember: Newcastle, Milan, PSG, Dortmund. It's the reverse order, so Dortmund, PSG, Milan, the Newcastle, all to play for. There is a possibility, I think, at the end of this window where PSG is playing Newcastle. I was trying to do math real quick, ladies and gentlemen. There is a very possible scenario where it's 7, 6, and 6, and all to play for in the final match day. Newcastle has to win, and I think the other match has to draw. Right? I don't know. But listen, AC Milan, the San Siro is going to be rocking. I'm backing them to beat Borussia Dortmund. Give me PSG getting the revenge. I have them really beating Newcastle. Newcastle likely going to be eliminated at that point. They're making it to the Champions League knockouts. You hate to see it, but listen, they gave it their all. But really, they are still pieces away, and they also got a terrible draw. So you hate to see them go out, but then there will be Newcastle fighting for for a possible Europa spot, but that might even be out of reach at this point because they'd have to go out and win and have like other results go their way. That is all of the Tuesday action. Let's go into Wednesday. We open it up with Galatasaray against Manchester United. What a perfect way to start this. Possibly setting this whole group right here and there. Because if Manchester United lose this game on Wednesday, Manchester United are out of the Champions League. That is what is at stake in Turkey on Wednesday. United, with a loss, will be out of the Champions League. And if Copenhagen somehow beat Bayern, then United are out entirely. So United are going to be going for a win, and they're going to be off much positive momentum, seeing that they just went out and had a great game against Everton. However, they are not playing an equivalent of an Everton. Galatasaray are a very competent squad. They are coming off a 4-0 win at home against Antalyaspor, who are not bad, by the way. And the Turkish league as a whole, I think when the draw got announced, everyone underestimated the Turkish league. And you don't do that with this Turkish league. Because Galatasaray can go and lose to a team like Hatayspor, who are not as good as Galatasaray. They went and lost to Bayern. That's a tough result. But listen, they've beaten teams like Besiktas. They went out to Old Trafford. They have beaten Man United already. And I see it right here as a possible repeat. I'm going to say this is a possible draw. But do you expect Galatasaray? I think they can really win this and kick out United. I had Galatasaray finishing second off the jump, and I'm going to keep them finishing second here. Copenhagen, I think, are going to lose to Bayern, opening the door for United to possibly slip into the Europa League spot. But it ain't going to be easy with United having to play the backups of Bayern, who are still, I think, better than Manchester United to begin with. A lot going on there. Sevilla and PSV is the other early match in this group, going to Group B next. Sevilla playing for their Champions League lives as well. A loss for Sevilla will kick them out of the Champions League. Arsenal, who have pretty much clinched it already, they play Lens. At home, I think Arsenal are going to draw this game, and PSV are going to win, and they're going to likely be through in the Champions League. But a loss for Lens will make this very, very difficult. The only reason that Lens still has a chance is the goal difference from PSV. And if you look at what Lens has done in this Champions League, listen, it's been a struggle for them. They lost to PSV. They drew PSV, which is pretty good. But then they beat Arsenal, which is crazy. and then they've drawn Sevilla. So really, at this point, Lens, who are struggling based on goal difference, they have the advantage right now. I have them in second. They just need to score, possibly find ways to score a couple more goals, and then they're going to be fine. They need to get a result, though, I think, against Arsenal to have any chance. Group C is next. We have Real Madrid and Napoli. And then Braga, Union Berlin. Napoli and Real Madrid are already through. Braga and Union Berlin, this is a winner-take-all match for the Europa League spot. Union Berlin, if they win this match, will be ahead with one match to go. And Union Berlin's playing Real Madrid. That's a tall ask to begin with. Braga's going to Naples. So if a draw happens, it's over. I'm not expecting Union Berlin to beat Real Madrid. However, if Union Berlin wins, I'm still going to favor them because it's also very tough to play in Naples. So, and that Napoli team is very deep. I like what they're doing right now. The Napoli squad, who recently just went out, beat Atalanta, pretty good. They struggled against Union Berlin. So Union Berlin, I think, are going to be in a much bigger form. Give me Union Berlin to beat Braga. I think Real Madrid's going to beat Napoli. But listen, Union Berlin, I mean, if they had an extra match, they would have had a chance. But Union Berlin, I believe with the Napoli loss, still have a chance. I don't even know anymore. I believe the Napoli are going to be through based on their goal difference, but we will see how it all pans out in a couple of weeks. Group C is already done. We have Real Sociedad. Group D, excuse me. We have Real Sociedad and Inter already through. Salzburg and Benfica. I mean, you cannot tell me about the disappointments of Benfica anymore. We know where they're at. We know their struggles. Sociedad are posting Salzburg. Salzburg, of course, I believe led by Benjamin Šeško. I believe he's on Salzburg. Let me just double check this because, and while I am checking this, make sure to go hit the like button. I can't find where he is. Did he move? See, this is where my ball knowledge is a little bit lacking sometimes, chat. It's like where you think you know where a guy is. Because I know Ben Šeško, excuse me. Oh, he moved. He's on Leipzig now. That's right. My mistake. He's Slovak. The national team player of I think Slovakia or Slovenia. I don't know. Moved to Leipzig. So he used to play for Red Bull Salzburg. He moved to the other Red Bull club. That's right. So I think Salzburg. Listen, they're a decent club still. They have a lot of talented players. I think Sociedad are going to win. I think both Sociedad and Inter win, setting up a possible chance for Benfica, who have scored one goal to still make the Europa League. I think still on the cards. And with that, that's all our soccer and coverage for today. Let's quickly go into the MLB free agency moves. There were a couple interesting free agency moves so far. We have Sonny Gray today actually making his move. He is going to the Cardinals. I like this move for the Cardinals. Going with a short-term rental. I'm calling it a rental move. Trying to maybe develop some more younger players. I think Sonny Gray is a placeholder. Someone I wanted the Mets to get, but he's not going to the Mets. He's going to. This is what I love to see. He's loving when the tracker says Yoshi Yamamoto is playing for the Oryx Buffaloes. New team, Oryx Buffaloes. But of course, we have Aaron Nola, who signed with the Phillies. We have the aforementioned move with the Sonny Gray move. And then, of course, Kenta Maeda signing with the Detroit Tigers today. So there are a couple of interesting moves, especially for the Tigers going out trying to sign an older. I mean, they're going for a placeholder as well. But Sonny Gray getting a 3-year, $75 million deal. I did not think he was getting a 3-year contract. I thought it was a 1-year contract when I initially read it. I was wrong. It was a 3-year contract. So what free agents... I think Yoshi Yamamoto, because of his posting time, will sign within the next month. You have to expect that. I think Matt Chapman could sign pretty soon. I think all of the moves are going to happen in late December, January. Nothing is happening now. I think you're gonna wait. I think 2 weeks, and then the hot stove's really gonna turn up. Still have a little more to wait. Players to watch out for that I think are underrated. You got to go Jung Ho Lee from the Kiwoom Heroes of the KBO. I think he's heavily underrated. I think whoever gets him gets a stud. Jordan Hicks from the Blue Jays, I think, is an underrated player as well. I'm calling him underrated because of where he's ranked on this list. Tyler Mahle from the Twins, I think, is also underrated. The former Reds player. I think has a lot left. And there's, of course, players everywhere as well. Shota Imanaga from the Yokohama Bay Stars, who actually was teammates with Trevor Bauer. Speaking of Trevor Bauer, I think Trevor Bauer could possibly be on this list too. Mitch Garver, I think, is a heavily underrated catcher. Possible big-time bat. Also, forgot to mention Jason Hayward, re-signed with the Dodgers. $9 million is a lot for him, but that is your quick MLB free agency update. A lot going on, I feel like, in the last 2 days. So here we are. And now time for the NFL. I'll just give my quick thoughts on this. The Jets game is terrible. If you want I'm kidding. I'm not selling my Jets tickets. They lost to the Dolphins. They deserve to lose to the Dolphins. Listen, when you have Tim Boyle on offense, you really shouldn't be expecting much, but the New York Jets are an absolute mess. Tim Boyle threw for 179 yards, but that's what you should expect when you have a quarterback throwing 38 attempts. The run game is invisible. It's driving me crazy. The offensive line is terrible. It's basically the equivalent of Swiss cheese for how many holes there are. You can tell me it's a lot of different things. What I know it can't do is block for a quarterback or a running back like a Breece Hall who only had 7 carries. How is that possible? 10 total run plays. 10. And you have Breece Hall. How is that possible? Nathaniel Hackett's a dweeb. Tyler Conklin was the second leading receiver. Breece Hall had 7 receptions. I don't know anymore. I also saw Alan Lazard being a healthy scratch. That free agency move is clearly working out. And the New York Jets lost by a whopping 21 points. I don't know anymore. I don't know anymore. I don't know what you want me to say. They're a great team. Not anymore. All the false optimism in the beginning of the year turned out to be true. Let's go through the game by some of the big games. We'll start with the Thanksgiving festivities. We had the Packers and beat the Lions. Dallas showing their incredible ways of beating Washington. They won 45-10. And then the Niners, who won 31-13. We also had an awkward moment with George Kittle, who was celebrating on live TV with the post-game crew, even though he had 3 catches for 19 yards. I think it's what it was, right? 3 catches for 19 yards? Yeah, 3 catches for 19 yards. Though it was a team thing with the Thanksgiving stuff, so that was kind of fun. But yeah, Brock Purdy doing Brock Purdy things. Other interesting results that I thought were interesting before we go into Buffalo, Philly, which was ridiculous. We have the Texans lose on a missed field goal off the crossbar against the Jacksonville Jaguars, which, you gotta feel for the Texans at this point. This was their big chance to go out and spoil the party. C.J. Stroud not turning the ball over, doing his thing. Nico Collins emerging well. Tank Dell emerging for the Texans as well. The Trevor Lawrence throwing for 364 yards. You just can't allow that and go out and expect to win. But the Texans really gave it their all. You got to commend their effort. But the Texans, if you look at the AFC standings, are now a whole 2 games back, somehow tied for second with Indianapolis, which makes 0 sense because they really shouldn't be here. But it's giving you some positive hope for the future, not about Gardner Minshew, but with Anthony Richardson, the former Florida player, what you could possibly expect from him next year. Anthony Richardson, who's been out for the season since I think week 4. That's the Colts have responded well, and it's led to of course, Gardner Minshew. We take a look at the Colts' last game. I mean, they went out and beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 27-20. I mean, Gardner Minshew's not doing very much, but it's carried by Jonathan Taylor. And that's what you should expect when their main offensive weapon is Jonathan Taylor. I mean, look at what the Colts did. I mean, Michael Pittman is still doing his thing. Josh Downs is very solid. But Jonathan Taylor, 91 rushing yards, 6.1 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns. Gardner Minshew not throwing for a touchdown, though, which is concerning. But the Bucs, led by Baker Mayfield, Rashad White rushed for 100 yards in the dot, with Mike Evans 2 receiving touchdowns, was not enough as the Colts went on to win and are somehow and undeservingly in second, tied with the Texans. We had the Falcons beat the Saints to really rebound themselves after being in a baby free fall. The NFC South is now even more confusing if this will scroll down. The Falcons are back in first at 5-6. I did not stutter and I did not say that wrong. The Falcons lead the division at 5-6 and they play the Jets next. So it's very possible with the Falcons' remaining schedule that the Falcons have probably the best shot at winning the NFC South. They played the Jets, the Panthers, the Bears, the Colts, and the Bucs. The only competitive game they should have on this entire schedule would have been the Jets if Zach Wilson's their quarterback. I am not stuttering when I say that. If Zach Wilson's the quarterback, the Jets are beating the Falcons. But due to incompetence and the owner playing Robert Saleh wanting to make a move now when you're 4-7, which, why? They're going to lose with Tim Boyle or Trevor Siemian or whoever they throw under there. Even though the Falcons' pass rush really sucks, even if the Jets win this game, no one's going to care very much. Other than the Falcons, because their playoff hopes may be tarnished. But the Falcons, nice win. They're back in first and should be in first. The Titans beat the Panthers. The Panthers firing Frank Reich today, as he should have been. And the Steelers just barely beating the Bengals and the Giants barely beating the Patriots. Tommy DeVito has almost as many wins this season as Zach Wilson. Now, for context here, the Giants are a very weird bunch. They've won back-to-back after losing a million in a row. But you've beaten Washington twice and New England? You're trying to tell me that? I don't know what to think. All I know is that they've ruined their own tank, which is hilarious. So what we've learned is that neither New York team knows how to tank correctly. We also had the Ravens beat the Chargers, and then Buffalo and Philadelphia playing in the game of the year, in which the Eagles late on marched down the field, got Jake Elliott to kick a field goal. Bills score in overtime on a field goal after Gabe Davis and Josh Allen had a little bit of miscommunication on a ball that should have been a touchdown to Gabe Davis. And then the Eagles, being the Eagles, ran for a touchdown with Jalen Hurts, keeping the narrative that their only losses against the Jets. Okay, but like I said, the Ravens beat the Chargers. And tonight should be a snooze fest with the Minnesota Vikings probably beating the Chicago Bears. We've talked about MLB. We've talked about the NFL. We talked about the Prem and the Champions League. And to finish off today's episode, we're going to do a almost full season recap. Mini one for F1 here today because I feel like it should get one. Let's break down the race. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to break down this race. Because if you want to listen to a good comprehensive breakdown, I'm going to do one here eventually. And, let's just do one right now. So the race from the weekend, we had Verstappen, Leclerc, then Russell, then Perez, and Norris, because Perez had the 5-second penalty for hitting Lando, which was deserved. Then we had Norris, Piastri, then Alonso, then Yuki Tsunoda, who was leading at the race at one point, which is kind of funny. Then Hamilton, Stroll, and Danny Rick. Then Esteban Ocon, then Gasly, then Albon, Hulkenberg, Sargent, Zhou Guanyu, Sainz, Bottas, and Kevin Magnussen was the final order. So, quick season recap. We'll go briefly, like a minute for each team. Red Bull, great season. Of course they did. They won the Constructors. They won the Drivers' Championship with Max. Their whole team was insane. They've won, as a team, I believe won 21 out of the 22 races, which, okay. But Max breaking records, 1,000 laps led. He's led the most laps, most race wins in a season, most consecutive race wins in a season. He is just a different breed of insane. Checo Perez, disappointing. Even though he finished in a good spot, he finished P2 in the drive. Did he finish P2? In the drive? I think he did. Yeah, Perez finishing P2 in the driver's standings as he should have been, being the Red Bull car. But the fact that he's almost doubled the points down to Max is concerning. I think should it cost him his seat? Yes. It's not going to, though. And I think we will see Checo Perez back in the car next year. I don't want to see it because it's going to bore me to death. Checo's a good driver, but I'm like, I want to see something new, you know? Put Albon back in that car. Put someone who's actually going to compete with Max and not be down 10 seconds in that second car. Next team we're going to talk about is Mercedes, who have had a very, very interesting season as a whole. They finished in second in the Constructors, 3 points ahead of Ferrari, which makes, I'll just say right now, it's weird to see a team finish in second and they didn't win a race. But when you have Lewis Hamilton, who had 234 points this season, he had a decent year, finishing P3 in the driver's standings in a bad Mercedes car. This is a good sign. If Mercedes doesn't F up the car design next year, I think Hamilton will be more competitive. But he finished in P3, Russell P8, which I did. But the way McLaren improved, I did not see this coming at all. Speaking of McLaren, actually, we're not going to go to the next. But the Mercedes team, a lot to build on, even though it was a poor season for them. They didn't win a race. They were semi-competitive in some of the races, but not really many all in all because they didn't win a race. Next up is Ferrari. The interesting bunch, we had Leclerc P5 and Sainz P7, yet they finished P3 in the Constructors. Like, of course, as mentioned, losing by 3 points. Interesting bunch as well. Charles Leclerc had a decent season, but he was so mad at the end of the team radio at the end. Not allowing him to do donuts and stuff with Max, I thought was kind of soft, but there wasn't any really reason to let him do it anyway, because there was, like, you finished P5, mate. Chill out. But also, by the way, quick thing on the Mercedes again, because it just came out of my mind, and Red Bull as well. Those two teams brought my greatest remarks on other podcasts this year. I mean, with the tricycle, whatever the heck I worded it on the Starting Grid podcast from Hungary. Yeah, it was the Hungary race. Check out that episode. Towards the middle of it, when I'm talking about Checo Perez and Red Bull. That was hilarious. But back to Ferrari, they're a mess, and they're going to continue to be a mess. I mean, they have a great driver lineup of Carlos and Charles, which we will see break up very soon. But no, you're always expecting more from them. Now that continues to be the narrative of the Ferrari car to this date. Next up is Aston Martin. After their incredible start to the season, they were mediocre, I think you can word it, to finish the year. The fact that Alonso was struggling against Yuki Tsunoda is a problem, and it will continue to be a problem. The question now will be, how much longer does Fernando Alonso have? I think next year could possibly be his last, even though I think that's been said about 6 different years in a row now. He's getting up there in age, and his contract ends at the end of next season. But the Aston Martin car in the beginning of the year was really good. But once other teams upgraded the right parts, your McLarens, your Alpines started to get better, to be better than the Aston Martin. Your Ferraris, your Mercedes cars got to be better. Because in the beginning, early stages of the year, you were thinking that Aston Martin was going to finish P2 in the Constructors. Which one I didn't want to see anyway, because I love Sebastian Vettel, and he should have been in this car. Prove me wrong, Sebastian. Yeah, but I love Seb. By the way, weird note: Alonso and Leclerc tied for fourth actually in the drivers' championship. I did not realize that, and Norris was 1 point behind them. Wow, you forget how close some of this stuff was. But yeah, it was not a good year in the full stages for Aston Martin. I think though next year, 2 years is when we could possibly see the emergence of a young guy like a Felipe Drugovich, who, if you go back to the race from you go back to FP1, Felipe Drugovich finished in P2, so you have this possible guy who can be an emergence at Aston Martin. You have Robert Schwartzman, who I think could be an emergence somewhere else. Jack Doohan, Teo Porcher, O'Sullivan, Dennis O'Ward. But you're really looking at guys like Frederick Vesti as well. You're the guys, if you're an F1 fan, that you should watch out for in the future that you don't know already. You're looking at Felipe Drugovich, the Brazilian driver. You have Robert Schwartzman from Russia. You have Jack Doohan, Frederick Vesti, and Teo Porcher. Who would I want to sign? I'm signing Porcher or I'm signing Felipe. I love Felipe Drugovich. He's so good. I would want to see him, all right, in the second Aston Martin spot instead of Lance Stroll. But I would want to see him in Haas side with Schwartzman. Feel like if they go double youth next year, one, that'd be hilarious, and two, it'd be an interesting move, but a move that people would be excited about because they did that a couple of years ago with Schumacher and Mazepin. Speaking of Mick Schumacher, he should have been in a car this week. I love Mick Schumacher. I'm a little bit biased towards Mick, but anyway, back to what we were just talking about. So, Aston Martin, interesting bunch. Next up, we have McLaren are next. Aston Martin actually finished fifth in the constructors, which is funny because in fourth was Team McLaren. On McLaren team, if you remember back in May, I was violating on the Starting Grid podcast during Miami. And after Miami, McLaren started to take a massive jump. I think if you're looking at the points number, I think they had 200 and something points since the race in Miami. You have to look back at the video, but actually into the podcast episode. But yeah, that they had a very good second half of the year, and it was led, of course, I think, by Lando Norris's 6 podiums this year, 6 or 7 podiums. Piastri being in the mix, winning a sprint race. They both had a solid season, and that McLaren car is going to get better. I want to see them into top 2 next year because I think if you combine a solid car with those 2 young drivers, it's going to be a very competitive next season. But I just don't know about McLaren as a team. Zach Brown, he's okay, but I just need them to develop a competent car for this man. P6 Alpine, I don't know if their lineup is working. I'm still questioning in my head why. It made sense for Pierre. It made sense for Pierre to leave AlphaTauri. That car sucked, but the dude won a race in an AlphaTauri and more competent in an AlphaTauri than an Alpine at points this year. So, listen, I feel like they could get bounced back, be in the race for P5 in the constructors next year, but they were in 6th, and it wasn't even close to 5th or 7th, so 6th place makes sense for them this season. P7 Williams, it was Alex Albon for the majority of the year, but America, hell yeah, the United States of America. Boom. We had 1 point this season, which, for reference, if you look at the old Haas drivers, 1 point is not bad, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, it was an interesting race, but Logan Sargent did get a point, so it took a while for Mick Schumacher to get his first point. Just remember that. But Williams, I think, constructed a semi-competent car. They got much better towards the end of the year. Alex Albon should not be in a Williams. He should be in a top 5 team level car. And he is a top 5 team level driver. He drove for Red Bull. You're not seeing a regular, everyday 6-year-old or a young driver drive in a Red Bull off the jump. And I think, one, it may have hurt Albon because, I mean, they replaced him off the jump with Sergio Perez, which, yikes. But it's also giving Albon a revolt after he had a solid year in a bad Williams car. So P7 as a team. Will we see Albon on the move this year? Probably not, but next year, I think he could possibly be looking at some much better jobs. P8 AlphaTauri, what a last couple of races for them. Daniel Ricciardo getting points, Yuki Tsunoda getting points, Liam Lawson getting a point. Just the combination of them all had a good season for a terrible car. That car sucked. And I think I'm putting that lightly. But what those AlphaTauri drivers were able to do with that not great car was very solid. I'm very happy for AlphaTauri, who are going to be renamed something next year. We have no idea what it is. P9 Alfa Romeo, that was the last time we're going to be seeing Alfa Romeo. They're going back to Sauber, Alfa Romeo, I don't know, something Sauber. But you're not expecting very much. Guan Yu Zhou, I think, should be on the hot seat. He had a very bad year. Valtteri Bottas. He is a long contract, so I don't think they would terminate it, but Alfa Romeo not in a very good spot right now. And, of course, Haas and last, maybe. I mean, they should be there. K-Mag and Nico Hulkenberg not working. Hulkenberg can only... Apologies for that, guys. Still a little bit of a dry throat. But it's just showing that Hulkenberg can only qualify, not perform in a race. Magnussen can't do either. At this point, he had a great start to last year. And then start to the 2022 season. I mean, he got a pole eventually at one point in his career. But K-Mag and Nico are not it. They have to get younger soon, or they're going to be, as a brand and as a team, in major, major trouble. Now, on that note, that'll be the end of today's episode of the Robbie Basel Show. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you see, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It's all greatly appreciated. Make sure to check out Into the Stands this Thursday at 5 p.m. The last episode is, of course, always linked in the description of this video. But for now, I'm Robbie Basel saying so long. I will see you guys on Friday here and on Thursday on Into the Stands. Goodbye, everybody.